This is a 2002 Toyota Tundra, and today I'm just going to be doing a simple maintenance of replacing the fuel filter. And this truck is my father's, and he says that when he bought it, which was like 4 or 5 years ago, he's never changed the fuel filter, which is pretty bad because it should be changed. A fuel filter should be changed every 2 years or 30,000 miles, whichever comes first. Well, it's been over 2 years and he's driven it more than 30,000 miles, which he's gone through several oil changes. And he bought this used, so we don't even know if the previous owner even when he replaced the fuel filter, if he ever did. The fuel filter should be underneath the driver's side, and it should be on the fuel line. So fuel line goes from gas tank to the engine. There's the gas tank, here's the fuel line, and the fuel filter is right here. And what the fuel filter actually does, it filters out it filters the gas before it reaches the engine. It filters it from particles or debris that falls into the gas tank, so that those particles don't go into the engine for the combustion, so you can get a nice combustion, so there's no misfire. But over time, when the fuel filter has gone through its cycle of filtering out a lot of particles, it goes bad. So then it starts to clog your fuel system from fully getting the right amount of fuel into the combustion chamber. Clogged fuel filter causes the fuel pump to work extra hard to make the flow of fuel more efficient, which can lead to your fuel pump breaking over time, which is an even bigger problem than just a simple maintenance of replacing your fuel filter. So now I'll show you I'm going to be removing the old fuel filter. But first, you're going to want to get some safety glasses, because fuel will be dripping out and onto the ground, and you don't want that getting to your eye. So to remove these nuts holding the fuel filter, it's going to be a 14 millimeter, and you're going to want to use a flare nut wrench in order to not round them. So I got 2 wrenches, one just to make sure that the fuel filter doesn't move, and the other one to loosen the nut. I got both bolts loose, and I told you fuel will be leaking out, so wear your protective gear. So now just unscrew the rest. Then we're going to want to take this bolt out to unclamp it from the mount and put it in our new fuel filter. That tiny bolt on the mount is actually a 8 millimeter bolt. Now you're kind of going to want to wiggle it out. Be careful not to break any of the lines. Open the clamp up, just mess with it, get it out. To make it easier to remove the fuel filter, I just unclipped the fuel line. Okay, now we got our old fuel filter out. Now it's time to install the new one. And in order to install this, we could just use our memory of how the old fuel filter was, or in case you don't remember how the old fuel filter was installed, you can just use the words that has on the new filter in, and then it has out. So in is where the fuel is going to be going into the filter, so the fuel can get filtered from all those particles, and then out is where it's going to be going towards the engine. So this side facing towards the fuel tank, this one facing towards the engine. So now we got our new fuel filter mounted into place, and remember, in faces the tank, and the other side out faces the engine. And now I'm gonna put the clamp back on, tighten the bolts on each side, and there is torque specs to these bolts, but I just tighten it as much as I can because I can't get a torque wrench in here. So, but you don't want to over tighten or under tighten it, which can cause a fuel leak. So just tighten it as best as you can, and then when you turn it on, just check underneath to make sure that there's no leaking from either side of the fuel filter. There we go, we got the new fuel filter installed. I just tightened these bolts as much as I can, hand tighten, and now we're gonna turn it on. Now we're gonna turn on the truck, start it over, and see if everything's all right. Here we are, about to turn on the truck. There it goes. Check underneath. So the engine turns over. I checked for any leaks underneath. Everything seems dry. So this was a success. And remember, the common symptoms of a bad filter is if your engine starts to idle roughly, if your fuel pressure is low, RPM start to flux up and down,